Hi Libra, welcome to your August 2020 Astro Alchemy transits. It's Rena here, and August is an interesting month because for a good portion of the month, the Sun is in a compatible sign, compatible angle to Libra. Leo is a sextile to Libra. It is your 11th house of hopes and wishes, and supposed to be the luckiest house. I think this is more of an ancient astrology belief, so it's not something that you hear talked about all over the place, but it's kind of fun to imagine that it is. I think of a line by Ernest Hemingway. He said, "Pretty to think so," to end one of his short stories. So definitely doesn't hurt to imagine that, especially since there's going to be a new moon in this area. But we can say it's the area of aspirations, hopes, and wishes. Mars is in your opposite sign all month of Aries. So that's the 7th house that deals not only with committed partnerships, which may be kind of feisty in some way, either combative or just more charged up. Maybe there's a lot of sexy vibes going around. But also, this is the area of legal matters. So there may be something that is actively underway at this time. And Mars has been in Aries since late June. When did it go? Yeah, I think it was late June, or is it late July? I don't have that in front of me. I'm not going to worry about it. I think it was late June, actually. But anyway, on the 3rd, we have a full moon at 11 degrees of Aquarius in that sector for you, which is the love sector, the 5th house. But this is also the house of creativity and the house of fun, pleasure. So this may be a situation where if you have met somebody recently or have been dating them for a while, you say to yourself, or you say to them, probably to them, not just to yourself, but this idea can come upon you at the very least that you want to make this permanent, you're through with dating, because the full moon can bring something to a sense of completion. And it doesn't mean that the two people part ways. It means that they have to take something to another level. The 5th house can be dating, falling in love, and love itself, but the commitment that we associate with a monogamous relationship belongs to the 7th house, and that's the house that you rule, Libra, so it makes sense on that level. This can also be finishing a creative project, having some kind of business that you've been working on, putting the finishing touches on, it before it's going to launch and things like that. This might be a good time to conceive children. The 5th house can be conceiving children, and the full moon is very fertile, so maybe that could happen for those who want it. On the 4th, Mercury goes into Leo, and there's that 11th house for you. So brainstorming, what is it that I want? What are my wildest dreams in life? And bringing a rational approach to it as well as a creative approach, where you're looking at it from the standpoint of how can I make it happen, the logistics of it, in other words. I wonder if that's where logical comes from, logistics, Venus, Mercury in the 11th house can also be reaching out to friends that you haven't spoken to in a while. Mercury is about communication. 11th house can be your friendships, groups that you belong to, and kind of getting in touch with people socially, maybe more than you have before in recent months. And on the 7th, Venus goes into Cancer. For Libra, this is your career sector, and this is very favorable. Venus is your ruler. Going into the career sector, and Venus possibly bringing money, we could see a raise. You also can come across to the public in a very appealing manner. So there are certain types of professions where this is going to be particularly advantageous. If you are in show business, if you're cultivating an audience, even like a YouTuber, has that on perhaps a smaller scale, but it still is relevant if they're doing it as their career. Even if you're interviewing for a position, the 10th house can be authority figures, and you can handle them, if you will. I think Libra is already good at handling people, but this can be impressing people who are very important when it comes to career. So it could be something along those lines. On the 15th, Uranus goes retrograde. I keep forgetting to write down that I think it's 10 degrees of Taurus. And so, again, what is Taurus to you? Taurus is the 8th house. So you've had Uranus in this 8th house, Scorpio's house, for quite a while, Libra. And this is just about what you have learned thus far with Uranus in the 8th house. I think it's breaking free of some of the outmoded ideas that are concerning spiritual beliefs, metaphysics. Now, the 9th house to me is more of that dogma, but in the 8th house, the influence of Uranus can make you attracted to things like astrology, the tarot, experiments with psychic communication, perhaps mediumship, anything that you tune into the dead. The 8th house is the dead. And metaphysics in general, especially the more far out, the better. Star seeds, the mysteries of the universe, galactic stuff. And so that might be very appealing to you at this time. And it's just, I think also another thing too is, I think especially getting into that kind of galactic stuff might be appealing to some Librans, because astrology, that's almost like white bread compared to talking about these other things that are really far out. Also, if you have any kind of bond with somebody that involves joint finances. So, for instance, I don't even know if they have alimony anymore. I mean, it kind of sounds funny to say so. There might be some women, I think some women have to pay the men alimony too, though. But any kind of like obligations, you may feel this strong urge to break free from them. And this isn't due to the Mercury retrograde. That's just going to bring up some of the situation to your conscious mind, because when a planet retrogrades, then you're kind of like reflecting on what the progress has been thus far. But in the 8th house, to have a transit of Uranus might be this idea that you really want to stand on your own materially. So in a certain sense, kind of more of a indirect sort of way, that could point to certain Libras who are also getting divorced or separating from their domestic partnership. because that may have been what kept you still in that environment, because you didn't want to have to live on your own salary if you felt that it was going to knock you down a peg in terms of your status in society. And what I mean by that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but just in case that sounds garbled, I just mean that sometimes when two people's, combine finances, they're on a different socioeconomic level, and that kind of affords them certain luxuries that they can't have anymore if they're having to survive on their own salary. And that, I think, is something that's part of the growth process, because Libra likes to have nice things, and that's okay, that's fine, but it should never be at the expense of your dignity, of your peace of mind. So, in other words, if you're living with somebody who is very abusive, even if it's just, I'm putting that in air quotes, mental abuse, that can be very detrimental to a person. Obviously, it goes without saying physical abuse, but mental abuse too. And so you're in a better position when you are living on your own, even if you have a very humble lifestyle. There's so much to be said for living simply, so much to be said for it. And one thing is that you're not beholden to other people, that you can, and also you might have more time to pursue what you want, instead of just trying to make money to support your lifestyle that is really empty, because you're not doing what you want to do, but you're just kind of doing whatever makes the most money and living with somebody that you have a lot of problems with. So if any of you, if there's just one person out there that needs to hear that message, that's good enough for me. On the 18th, the new moon is at 26 degrees of Leo. Again, that 11th house. Set some intentions, even if you don't believe in that and you don't think that the 11th house is the luckiest house, it doesn't hurt. And certainly your long range goals. What kind of things? It's fun to dream, and it's fun to imagine a life where you are doing the things that you love to do. Especially if you feel like there's a big gap between you now and then. This can be an association with new people. I don't know how that would come about. I mean, whether it would have anything to do with career even, that you're networking with certain people, that you have the kind of profession, maybe it's a new profession, recently new profession that puts you in contact with many different people, like a corporate position. Definitely those kinds of jobs are ideal for a Libra, because you have that natural ability to get along with many different types of people and also just make a good impression on them. On the 19th, Mercury goes into Virgo, so for you that is the 12th house. I just want to say one more thing about the 11th house and the new moon and all that stuff, that you might be kind of going through a transition in terms of your social circle as well, especially with Uranus in the 8th house. Uranus is the ruler of the 11th house. So this would probably have some kind of a spiritual, intuitive angle to it, where you're meeting people in that walk of life, and that is kind of opening up your world in a whole new way. So Mercury is going into Virgo. That's the first foray into the 12th house for you, the early stages of hibernation, even in August. Mercury in the 12th means that Mercury has been in that 11th house for over 2 weeks. So like I said, oh, well, I already mentioned when it went in. It's been about 2 weeks, yeah. So it goes from very chatty and social to contemplative and kind of in your own head, if you will. This is not necessarily going to be the time when you're going to communicate with the greatest skill. You're going to be much more, like I said, contemplative, which means that you're doing the soul searching. You're not thinking logically, you're thinking in terms of spiritual pursuits and intuitively. This is the house of dreams, and talking about like actually when we sleep, those kind of dreams. And there's like an otherworldly quality with this house. So if you find yourself being less verbal, less outward, that makes a lot of sense, because then the sun goes there 3 days later on the 22nd. And so this can be that hibernation period before your solar return, which is either happening in October or November. I mean, October. Yeah, October, but also September. I skipped over the month of September. Late September to late October for Libra. And just a time when you may not even on the conscious level think about it, but gravitate towards more solitary pursuits and being more into that hermit mode. So it's very interesting that this kind of runs the gamut in the month of August for you, Libra. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, a natal chart interpretation, whatever, relationship reading, check me out. The link is below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.